I had memorized over 200 Bible verses. I had printed out every argument I could find against Islam. Every criticism, every contradiction, every question that scholars had raised over centuries. I had it all written down in a notebook I carried everywhere for 3 weeks. My father's church was organizing a debate with the local Muslim community, and when he stood at the pulpit and asked for volunteers, my hand went up before I even thought about it. I was 23 years old. I was confident. I was certain. I walked into that mosque holding my notes, my Bible, and everything I believed in. I walked out holding a Quran. My name is Sarah. I grew up in a small town in Tennessee, the daughter of a pastor who had been preaching the gospel for over 30 years. Church wasn't just part of our life. It was our life. Sunday service, Wednesday Bible study, Friday youth group, summer camps, mission trips abroad where we built schools and handed out Bibles in languages I didn't speak. Every holiday, every birthday, every moment of crisis, the church was always there, holding us, shaping us, telling us who we were and what we believed. My father wasn't just a pastor. He was a man who believed with every breath he took. I watched him counsel grieving families at midnight, sitting with them in hospital waiting rooms until the sun came up. I watched him fast for days when someone in the congregation was fighting for their life. I watched him weep at the pulpit, not performing emotion, not building to a dramatic moment, but genuinely broken by love for God, right there in front of everyone. He never asked anyone to give him credit for his faith. He just lived it, quietly and completely, in every room he walked into. That was the faith I inherited. That was the faith I was certain was worth defending. So when the debate was announced, I didn't volunteer out of arrogance. I volunteered out of devotion. Someone had to stand up. Someone had to represent everything we believed. And I thought, if not me, then who? I spent 3 weeks preparing. I woke up before sunrise every morning and sat at my kitchen table surrounded by Bible translations, printed articles, and pages of handwritten notes. I cross-referenced translations. I read theology I had never touched before. I found every challenge scholars had raised against Islam over centuries and built careful, logical responses to each one. I memorized specific phrases in Arabic, the original language of the Quran, so that no one in that room could tell me I had misunderstood. By the night of the debate, I had 2 full notebooks and over 200 verses committed to memory. I was ready. I believed that completely. The mosque was smaller than I expected. I don't know what I had been imagining. Something imposing, something foreign. But it was a quiet building on a side street with a wooden door, and when it opened, an elderly man with a white beard smiled and said simply, "Welcome. Please come in." There were maybe 40 people inside, families, young men sitting cross-legged near the back, talking in low voices, women in headscarves who nodded gently when I entered. Within minutes, someone had brought out a tray of tea. Someone else pulled up a chair, asked if I was comfortable, asked if I had found the place easily. There was nothing cold about it, nothing foreign, just people opening a door. I kept my hand on my notebook. The imam, the Muslim scholar who would be speaking with my father, was a soft-spoken Egyptian man named Sheikh Yusuf. He had kind eyes and spoke in slow, deliberate sentences, the kind that make you feel like every word has been considered before it's given to you. That bothered me in a way I couldn't explain. I had prepared for confrontation, for defensiveness, for the kind of argument where both sides raise their voices until someone walks away. I had spent 3 weeks building my wall, brick by careful brick. I had not prepared for kindness. The discussion began. My father spoke with the authority of someone who had preached those words for 30 years. Sheikh Yusuf listened without interrupting, without sighing, without once looking around the room. And when my father finished, the sheikh leaned slightly forward and said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. He said, "I don't want to win this conversation. I want you to leave here knowing that we love Jesus too." The room was quiet. My father blinked. I looked down at my notebook. The evening went on for hours. Every argument I had prepared, I watched it meet not a counter-argument, but a question. Sheikh Yusuf didn't attack. He asked, "What do you believe about the nature of God? What did Jesus himself say about who he was? Where in the Bible does Jesus say, like in his own words, 'I am God, worship me'?" I knew the verses. I had memorized them exactly for this moment. I found them and read them aloud. And for the first time in my life, I heard them as if I were a stranger reading them for the very first time, not because anything on the page had changed, but because someone had asked me to slow down, to stop reaching for the words and actually listen to what they were saying. We stayed until almost midnight. On the drive home, my father and I didn't speak. Not from anger, from something heavier, something that sits in your chest when the world has quietly rearranged itself and you're not yet sure what it looks like now. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept opening my Bible, then closing it, then opening it again. I went back to the mosque the next Friday and the Friday after that. No notebook this time, no prepared arguments. I just sat and listened. I asked questions that had lived inside me for years, questions I had never felt safe enough to voice inside a church. Questions about suffering, about the silence of God, about prayer when the words stopped meaning anything, about why, if I was being completely honest with myself, I had carried a quiet distance my whole life that no sermon had ever reached. The women there didn't pressure me. They made tea. They sat with me. They answered what they could. And when they didn't know something, they said so, plainly, without embarrassment. That honesty undid me more than anything else. I'd grown up in a world where doubt was something you overcame, something you confessed and buried. These women treated it like something worth following. 6 weeks after that first night, I sat alone in my apartment with the Quran open in my lap. I had read every page by then, not looking for weaknesses, not building arguments, just reading, just listening, letting the words arrive without fighting them. And somewhere in those pages, in words 1,400 years old, preserved across centuries in a language I was only beginning to understand, I found something that felt like the thing I had always been looking for. Like a door I'd been circling my whole life without knowing it, and someone had simply opened it and stepped aside. I lowered my head to the ground for the first time. My forehead touched the floor, and I said the words quietly, alone, with no one watching. There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger. I didn't know what I would feel. Lightning, maybe, or a great silence, or nothing at all. What I felt was tears, not from sadness, but from something finally letting go. Something I had been carrying for so long I had forgotten it was weight. I called my father that evening. He didn't say much at first. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. I could hear him thinking. After a silence long enough that I wasn't sure he was still there, he spoke. "Sarah," he said, "I raised you to follow the truth, wherever it leads." He hasn't said it was where he wanted it to lead, but he said it. That was 3 years ago. I still call him every Sunday. We still talk about God. We always will. We still disagree about most of it. But when we pray separately in our different ways, I believe we are both turning toward the same light. I walked into that mosque holding my arguments. I walked out holding something I have never been able to put down.